slides for me. So welcome everybody. My name's Bernadette Gigliotti. I'm the CEO of the Australian Centre for Career Education, and welcome to any CEAV members that might be out there in the cloud this afternoon. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement to country. We respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging leaders who are following in the footsteps of those who came before, and we thank them for the opportunity to conduct our business on their lands. And the Industry Immersion program is funded by the Department of Education and Training, and it aims to provide the opportunity for students in years 7 to 10 in eligible Victorian government schools to engage in a range of industry immersion experiences that build their knowledge of the world of work. And the Department of Education and Training has engaged the CEAV to deliver this program. We thank them also for the use of the Cisco WebEx platform today, and also to thank them for providing the opportunity to open these webinars to all schools across Victoria. So that's been a fantastic initiative on their part, and they've been very well received across all schools. So thank you everyone for attending today. I'd like to formally introduce Sarah Cannell. Can we go to the next slide? Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Oh, we've got a background slide. Sorry, Jen.
That's okay. That's fine.
I forget. So it's very natural, very live, everybody. So we might keep you entertained this afternoon as well. So you'll know that the CEAV has been developing these programs since early 2018. And it's provided thousands of Victorian students with the opportunities to gain some insight into Victoria's 11 growth industries, with hands-on visits, of course, to operational workplaces. That was the intent. And prior to the impact of COVID-19, we had a very successful program running with lots of opportunities for students to actually engage in activities, and also to experience really quite unusual workplaces, learning about the different occupations, but also gathering together the evidence that they will need for future career planning, in particular subject and career choices. And of course, this program was designed for students in years 7 to 10, and more recently this year, as a result of the restrictions that occurred because of COVID-19, the CEAV has developed a suite of engaging resources and online webinars, which you're participating in today, to encourage a better understanding of and knowledge of industry and the requirements of industry in certain occupations, but also how to link the knowledge base that's happening in the classroom with the industry requirements, and to see their learning actually in action. So it's a very applied learning model of a program, and very focused on outcomes in relation to future job choices. So as a career practitioner, we hope that you'll encourage your students to attend the webinars. We now have a range of them that you can book your students into, and use the resources as part of your career education programs, and perhaps also pass on relevant information to subject teachers, particularly this term when students are finalising their program for 2021. And the workbooks are applicable. Obviously, we wrote them specifically for year 7 to 10. However, students undertaking VET and VCAL will find a lot of really useful information in them related to industries of their choice, and also students undertaking industry and enterprise. You'll find that particularly students in year 10 who might have that as part of their program will find the information, the labour market knowledge, the fast facts, really useful to completing their programs in 2020. So I'll hand it back over to Jen Mitchell, who's our project officer, and she's going to introduce our speaker as well as the objectives of today's webinar. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Bern. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, which is a very special Wednesday if you're in Metro Melbourne and you've chosen to be with us in the room instead of having afternoon tea at a cafe or perhaps coffee with a friend. So thanks for joining us. We've got a really great presentation today, and I know that you'll get a lot out of it because we actually had the student presentation last week, and so I've been privy to hear Sarah's presentation for this afternoon, and it's very interesting and very thought-provoking about what type of students could be suited or could be interested in pursuing a career in dairy. So what are the main objectives of this afternoon's presentation? So we're going to hear from a food and fibre industry professional. Sarah's from Gipps Dairy, and she will provide you with some information about the opportunities that are available within the industry. A little bit of labour market information will be presented, which is always useful, so we can apply that to our discussions and teachings when we're talking with young people. We're going to hear about some courses that students could consider undertaking to help them secure those jobs in the dairy industry. There's also going to be a small little presentation that I'll deliver just at the end to provide you with some more information on the online resources. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at these, I will quickly run you through them and give you the information so you can go back and have a look later on and see how hopefully you can apply these to your careers programs in schools. And we've also got Steph Doyle from the Department of Education with us today. So she's going to run you through how to use the My Career portfolio within your education program, career education program within government secondary schools. As Dave mentioned, if you do have any questions, because mics and videos are off for the webinar, we encourage you to type them in the chat box. So we've got Amelia here this afternoon and Dave and myself, and we will all monitor that chat box. And if you do have any questions, I'll be sure to pass them on to Sarah, and she'll be able to answer them in due course. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sarah and she will provide us with some great information and insight over the next half an hour or so. So thank you, Sarah, and welcome, and thank you again for presenting for us this afternoon.
No worries, Jen. Thank you, and thank you very much to everyone who's joined us today. And I'll apologise now. I won't be looking at the camera. I'll have my head side on so that I can use my larger screen for the presentation. So, as Jen mentioned, I work for Gipps Dairy, which is a branch of Dairy Australia. Next one, please. So Dairy Australia is the national services body for the dairy industry, and the dairy industry is the 4th largest rural industry in Australia. Some of the focus areas that Dairy Australia focuses on are research and development, education, such as for schools and things, trade and strategy, marketing. We do lots of marketing and communications, and sustainability of both the environment and sustainability of the dairy industry as well. And as you can see from the map here, the dairy industry is primarily heavily concentrated on the southeast coast area of Australia, and a little bit over in southern WA, and a little bit up around the Atherton Tablelands in Cairns as well. Next slide, please. So within, we've got Dairy Australia, and then we've got 8 regional programs, of which I mentioned that I'm with Gipps Dairy. And then Gipps Dairy is made up of a regional manager, a couple of administration and executive assistants, regional extension officers such as myself, and a communications and engagement officer. On our board, we have 6 farmer directors and up to 3 specialist directors. So the specialists we have with us at the moment, we have a bank manager on the board, a vet, and a geneticist on the board. Next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about what happens with Gipps Dairy. So at Gipps Dairy, we partner with dairy farmers, education and training providers, primary schools, secondary schools, and tertiary. Local organisations such as there's a dairy youth group. I'm in Warragul in Gippsland, so we've got a dairy youth group nearby. Industry groups such as our local food and fibre group, and we participated in their harvest last year or the year before, and every year, except this year, of course, because of COVID, we participate in the farm. You might have heard of the Farm World Field Days and also the South Gippsland Dairy Expo. We are heavily involved with research and development corporations, and we're lucky enough to have a large research farm out near us in Gippsland called which is fantastic for school excursions as well. And we work closely with government too. The services that we provide to support dairy farm businesses relate to animal health and welfare, feed-based management, which relates to the best methods for cultivating feed, animal nutrition, farm business management, natural resource management, and career development and working with people. So my role at Gipps Dairy, I'm a Regional Extension Officer, and my role within Gipps Dairy is to help attract people to the dairy industry, assist with workforce development, dairy network, assist farmers with safety practices. So I'll talk a bit more about these things as we go on. I just wanted to mention my rather curvy path into my current role, because I think this is really important for students to realise that if they do a course and then at the end of it they feel that, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or maybe it won't get me where I want to go, that there are so many different paths to lead to where you want to get to. So after I finished high school, I went straight into a Bachelor of Education in Environmental Science. In the second year of my degree, there was a big decline in with teachers by the government, and so our lecturers said to us, well, you're halfway through and your course, you're doing education and environmental science, so why don't you just don't drop out now, finish and just see where your career path takes you, which was fantastic advice. When I finished my degree, it was a 4-year degree, I didn't quite know which field I wanted to go into yet, so I took, I've put in inverted commas, a gap year, because I didn't actually take the year off. I did a diploma in environmental management to just test the waters a little bit. I was out there. And through doing that course, I met somebody who worked at a dairy processor, and I applied for a job there in the environmental field and got a job as an environmental technologist. And that was at the Bonlac factory in Darnham, down near Warragul, and it's now been brought out by Fonterra from New Zealand. While I was at Bonlac, I did my Masters in Environmental Science because it looked like that was the path my career was going to go down. But while I was at Bonlac, I also got involved in quality and health and safety accreditation as well. After I finished at Bonlac, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of consulting in the areas of health and safety, quality and environmental management. And at the same time, I thought, oh, they're crying out for teachers by this stage, so I thought I'll try my hand at teaching as well. So did a little bit of CRT work, but I actually, by that point, about 10 years out from my degree, decided that I preferred to stay in industry. The consulting work led me to a position with a company as a human resources manager. While I'd been consulting to them, I'd gotten to know the organisation quite well. I was doing a lot of work for them. We developed a fantastic rapport. And when their human resources manager left the company, they offered the position to me, which I gladly took. During that time, I also met my husband. His family had a stock feed business, which we later purchased from his parents. And then we bought our own dairy farm and moved the stock feed business up to where we were. And during that time, I also took a bit of time to have a couple of kids while we were working on the farm and had the stock feed business. As my children got a little bit older, I wanted to get back out into industry, and we'd wound down our stock feed business by that stage and sold the dairy farm. So I started working for a first aid organisation, which was also a registered training organisation. And then I moved into my role at Gipps Dairy. And one of the links there was I didn't actually make the link between the first aid organisation being an RTO and the work I would be doing with RTOs when I was at Gipps Dairy until after I was in my position. And then one day my manager was talking to me about RTOs, and I said, oh yeah, I used to work, for an RTO. And he's like, yeah, exactly. We picked that up in your interview. And I said, okay. So I had overlooked that link myself. But since I've been at Gipps Dairy, I've been able to further my education. The organisation put me through my diploma in human resources, focusing on dairy and the pastoral award. And although my role at Gipps Dairy is actually a regional extension officer, and I do travel all over Gippsland, which I love, I also look after the Young Dairy Network, and I have more recently moved into this role of a career development coordinator. So there's been a lot of variation within the one role at Gipps Dairy. As an Extension Officer, I get to speak at careers expos, especially when we're able to do them face-to-face, promote dairy in primary and high schools. We love running field days and workshops, primarily for farmers. With the Young Dairy Network, I coordinate technical, networking and social events. Each year we organise an annual tour to Tasmania around some dairy farms, and unfortunately it got cancelled the day before we were due to leave, actually, because of COVID this year. So that tour would have taken, we go through quite a process to recruit 14 young people in the dairy industry to take with us. And yeah, anyway, hopefully we'll get it off the ground next year. I also spend a lot of time meeting with stakeholders, whether it be local government, milk processors, educational institutions, banks and so forth. We do one-to-one farm visits, and that might involve helping a farmer set up a health and safety system, or helping them put their employee, their HR policies and procedures in place for their workforce. And we're also, we try and provide an employment agency, but if people contact looking for employees, or people contact us looking for jobs, we do our best to try and make a match and help that happen. And at the moment, we're really concentrating on trying to match up trainees. There's a lot of farmers looking for trainees, and we're just not able to fill those positions because I think there's quite a lack of awareness of what positions are available in the dairy industry. So I really love my job. I've been with Gipps Dairy a couple of years. I'm new to the career development role, but I've been an Extension Officer for a couple of years. Every day is different, not so much during COVID, but particularly when it's face-to-face. We do events all over Gippsland, as I mentioned, and they can vary from technical events to job skills expos. Might be an event where I'm doing my own professional development, so there's lots of variation. We meet new people at all the events. There's about 1,300 farms in Gippsland, and although that's a lot of people, we do develop really good working relationships with the regular farmers that come along to things. There's lots of training and development opportunities, both for myself, but also for me to share with other people. I love working with people who are passionate about what they do. People generally don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to milk cows unless they really love it and love their animals. Working with animals is great. Cows, dairy cows, lovely animals to work with. And I'll talk a bit about calves in a minute. They're very cute, but they're actually quite difficult to work with. I get to be outdoors. One of the reasons I loved the job, or do love the job, is because I'm not office bound all the time. I get a really good balance of office days compared to days when I'm out on the road. And as I mentioned, I work all over Gippsland, and we get to go to other areas in Australia, such as the Tassie tour. I'll give a little bit of background about the Australian dairy industry. So it puts the positions, the jobs that I'm about to talk about later, into a bit of context. So across Australia, dairy is a $13 billion industry, and that's looking across the farm sector, manufacturing sector and export. So we export 35% of our product and keep 65% in Australia, which is great that we use a lot of what we produce. It's also great for times like COVID, where we have difficulty importing. And likewise, we can still support a large part of our market when we have trouble exporting, like we experienced during COVID as well. Some of the major markets that we export to are China, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia and Indonesia. And there's lots of opportunities for students and farmers to have tours of these areas as well. We export liquid milk, powdered milk, infant formula, cheese and yogurt to these countries. So a quick glance at the Australian dairy industry. So we have about 5,200 farms, which produce 4.4 billion litres of milk a year. The dairy workforce is a bit over 46,000, so that's a lot of jobs across the country. Nearly 1.5 million cows in Australia, and the average herd size is about 276 animals. So let's jump into the career opportunities. There's so many careers in the dairy industry. On-farm careers as a farmer, a field officer from a processing facility, an industry analyst, research positions, management positions, and right through to business advisor positions. So there's a few reasons why dairy is an awesome career. It's a very progressive and technologically advanced industry. There's a lot of farmers are using drones on their properties now, cow collars to measure cow movement. So if a cow is down in the paddock, it will alert the mobile phone so the farmer can detect if the cow's been down too long and then go out and check on the animal. There's lots of milk monitors and feed monitors. So if you walk into a dairy, there's lots of computers operating in dairies these days. There's a very big opportunity for wealth creation in terms of purchasing or building a herd. The animals are worth a lot of money in themselves. Purchasing machinery, such as large machinery, such as tractors, and also, of course, creating wealth with the acquisition of land. There's a wide breadth of career opportunities and pathways, which we'll discuss in the next few slides. The dairy industry is very well supported. Farmers pay a levy, and the levy is also matched by the government. So this is what funds organisations such as Dairy Australia, Gipps Dairy, and there's other organisations such as the Gardner Foundation that has millions of dollars invested to support the dairy industry each year. Being a dairy farmer or the dairy industry, there's consistent cash flow year round, unlike some agricultural industries that require like fruit picking and harvesting at particular seasons. Milk is produced all year round. Dairy is a product that feeds the world, and a lot of people like that feeling of being able to contribute to the health and nutrition of Australians and around the world. And also during COVID, dairy was considered an essential industry, so everything kept operating as normal, or well, as normal as it could, kept operating. And yeah, so there was virtually none of my colleagues or people at Dairy Australia or relating to farms were stood down or lost their jobs during COVID, which was absolutely fantastic. So this is some information from a TAFE in northeastern Victoria, and this data is based on TAFE more so than university, because I think with a lot of people are fairly familiar with the university courses such as ag science or becoming a vet, but there's a lot of opportunity through the TAFE sector as well. So this TAFE runs the courses that are listed there, the Cert 4 Diploma and Advanced Diploma in Agribusiness. They have about 60 graduating students a year, including online. There's a lot of flexibility with learning. Most graduating students have a job, and 100% of them get a job within 3 months, which is fantastic. About 7 to 10 calls a week from employers looking for graduates at this TAFE in northeastern Victoria. And students can obtain work such as consultants, agronomists, farm managers, farm technicians, and in business management. Starting salaries for people who've done the Diploma of Agribusiness is about $65,000, and apparently one person quoted their starting salary is $80,000, which is not bad. And across Australia, there are about 6 to 8 jobs per student in the agricultural sector. We get calls all the time from farmers looking for employees, and the positions are just really, really hard to fill. Okay, so some of the on-farm opportunities could be a milker, a calf rearer. A calf rearer is quite a specialised role due to the susceptibility of calves for disease and depending on the weather, respiratory disease. So they need a lot of care and nurturing, and calf rearing is building the shape of the future herd. So that's although people think calves are really cute and all the students want to go and play with them, it's actually quite a specialised role. You can have roles harvesting on farm, as a farm hand, moving to a more senior farm hand or manager position. There's opportunities for share farming, which is sharing the assets, the work, the bills and the income with another farming business. Becoming an equity partner if you can't afford to or don't want to have your own farm, if you want to go into business with someone, and the opportunity to purchase farms. Some of the off-farm career opportunities include an agronomist, a vet, a milk factory field officer, dairy technician, animal nutritionist, irrigation technician in northern Victoria, and there's an irrigation district in Gippsland as well, truck driver, farm consultant, soils technician, marketing manager, and a human resources advisor. So that's just a handful of the positions that are available. There's AI technicians. Dairy Australia has market analysts, international market analysts. We have comms and marketing, and I'll discuss those a little bit more in the next slide too. So what sort of people are suited to a role in dairy? Pretty much anyone. There's a role to fit any personality. So if you have students that are outdoorsy, well, obviously there's plenty of outdoor work on a farm. You might have students that require and get a bit anxious about education. They might prefer things to be each day so they know exactly what they're doing. Milking cows in the shed is the perfect position for that. We have one farmer that comes to mind, has an employee with additional needs who needs everything to be very structured and gets very tired after more than about 20 hours a week. That's his limit. They're fully aware of that and are able to accommodate it. There's a lot of part-time roles in the dairy industry too. People who like variation, they might like a role such as a herd manager or a farm manager where they're looking after the herd and people and feed trucks coming and going all day and maybe some harvesting equipment coming and going. Or they might like a role like an extension officer, like I'm doing now. Creative people, as I mentioned before, there's comms and media roles. We do a lot of our own videos. If you go to YouTube and search for Dairy Australia, we do all of our videos in-house. Lots of photography. We've got a massive image gallery. We put out flyers and brochures all the time. All of that photography is done by our internal staff as well. Digital technology, if you've got students that like IT, plenty of work in industry bodies and on research farms, such as I mentioned Allen Bank before, and a lot of larger farms are into technology. If people are into science, there's the research farm, like I mentioned before, a lot of lab work at different organisations such as AgriBio and Agriculture Victoria. Sometimes there's people who prefer the soft skills, the people side of things, which is largely my area. I'm not so much based on the technical side of it. So some of the larger farms might have their own HR person. Otherwise, there's lots of roles in consulting for human resources advisors for farmers. If your students like numbers, there's always bookkeeping required on farms and lots of positions in banks for agribusiness bankers as well. You might have students that like hands-on and fiddling around with things, so they might like to become a diesel mechanic, for example, and work with large machinery. You might have students that really have, sensory seekers, sensory needs, and large machinery normally hits the mark for these type of people. They love being up in the big machines and just keeping track of all the digital equipment in them as well, and that's really good for meeting sensory needs of some people. And of course, people who love animals. So you might have students that are cut out to be a vet or who might like to be a calf rearer. So pathways within schools, obviously the vet or the VCAL pathway, and then some of the subjects that relate to the dairy industry, ag and hort subjects, animal studies, such as jobs on farm, to become a vet or to work for a seed or a feed company. Environmental science subjects, there's a lot being done in terms of sustainability in the dairy industry. We've got a huge sustainability framework and we've had Jamie Dury work with us on some of our sustainability information. Science, lots of lab skills, lots of testing for milk quality, particularly with milk processors. Food technology, I forgot to mention earlier that we have a few people working at Dairy Australia who are just constantly developing new recipes and looking at the properties of cheese, yogurts, cream cheese, a lot of dairy products to see how they go in the kitchen. So we've got a test kitchen where they're playing around with new recipes, and also they put out recipe books. When I worked at Bonlac, there was a lot of food tech people also worked as lab techs as well. Health and human development subjects, again, at the test kitchen, or for industry organisations, we've got a large Healthy Bones project going at the moment, with a lot of research into dairy nutrition. Visual arts, as I mentioned before, we do all of our own comms and media. Maths, we have an analyst that loves analysing the world market and the export. Not my thing, but he's very, very good at what he does. And business, there's a lot of, if you've got students that like business and again, maths, a lot of positions at rural banks that we really need people to specialise in agriculture to understand the different banking and lending requirements of farmers. So the next slide is just obviously an overview, not very easy to read on a slide, but we have a brochure on careers in the dairy industry that links the education and training pathways to the different career streams. For example, processing, to be an operator, there's a certificate 2 in food processing. I'll just find another one. Human resources, as I mentioned before, I did a diploma in human resources in dairy. So truck driver, certificate 4 in transport and logistics. So this brochure mentions a lot of careers, and I think Jen can send the link out. Yep, thanks Jen, after the session. Yep. So key trends in the dairy industry relating to employment. Farms are requiring a lot more specialised advisors as there is a lot more red tape and legislation coming up, particularly in terms of PA requirements. On-farm jobs are becoming more skilled and required more specialised staff in terms of areas like operating the digital technology, looking after animal welfare. A lot of farmers do that themselves now and try and limit calling out the vet, mainly because of the bills. There can be good money involved for farm managers, herd managers and human resources managers, both on and off farm. As with a lot of positions, the large dollars comes with, more than a 38-hour working week. So that needs to be kept in mind when promoting it to students. And as a lot of family farms are selling up and there's a increase in purchase in corporate farms, however, do create a lot of positions because a lot of the corporate organisations, they want to have a human resource advisor. They might want to have an environmental specialist on board, so that does create a lot of positions as well. Next slide, please, Jen. So just a few thoughts to put out to students is they might not want to live in the city, they might enjoy a regional life. People who like their sensory seeking might love getting paid to ride a motorbike, ride a quad bike and work with animals. With about 46,000 people in the dairy industry, there's lots of different careers to suit all the different personality types. The beginning salaries aren't too bad, $41,000 for a first year, and that's based on the pastoral award. As I mentioned, the dairy industry is really well set up for both vocational training and or tertiary education, either at the TAFE sector or university. And at the moment, the government is offering free TAFE. Well, it's not entirely free, there's still administration costs, but generally for TAFE, do traineeships, particularly in agriculture, and then if students are concerned about ending up with a HECS debt, then they're able to take a different path to avoid a HECS debt. So that's all I have for this presentation. Thank you very much. And yeah, any questions? If I can't answer them now, then I'll definitely get back to people.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. That was great. I think that you have really explained really specifically. I really particularly like the way you pinpointed what type of students. Those, is it the outdoorsy kids or the science-minded students or even the creative young people that, there are lots of opportunities in dairy, and maybe as career practitioners, that's not at the forefront of our mind if we're in Metro Melbourne, or I think perhaps with regional schools that is more a consideration, but I think Metro teachers and career practitioners should be encouraging students to think about the dairy industry. If we do have any questions, I don't see anything in the chat box at the moment, pop it in there. But I was wondering, Sarah, are there any opportunities for work experience placements or structured workplace learning as part of VCAL or vet certificates that you know of that some farms do offer?
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of farms that will take students for work experience or vet or VCAL. And there's one guy that comes straight to mind who's working at the Allen Bank Research Farm. He did work experience. He had no work connection to farming. He did work experience on a farm when he was 15, and then 5 years later, I think he became a diesel mechanic, and then 5 years later he just kept thinking back to his experience on farm, and he applied for a position at Allen Bank, and now he's working at the research farm and loves it. So yeah, we love to take people for work experience. It depends. We don't have a regular bank of farmers. It kind of depends on what is happening seasonally and what their workforce is, if they've got enough people on board at the time to help supervise when they've got a student on board. But we definitely encourage people to get in touch, and we try our hardest to place them with a suitable farmer.
Because I think as career practitioners, we all know that having that hands-on experience and really trying out if you would like to work outside or all of these different, or work in a lab, that's how young people will get a really good idea on if it's something they'd like to pursue further, and by trying it out is the way that they can make those decisions.
Yep,
so
sure.
It doesn't appear that we have any questions.
I have a question.
I thought Bernadette might have a question.
I've been listening over here in the corner. I want to be reinvented as a cheese maker. Because I love cheese, and it's really to go to the point of we can't have excursions now because schools are still preparing to come out of the COVID pandemic. But when things get back to regular, and I'm hopeful that within 12 months we'll be there, how do schools go about connecting with you, Sarah, to perhaps organise a tour for their career practitioners? I mean, we have 36 networks across the state, and there could be a group of practitioners that are really interested in learning about the industry firsthand. What would be the process of either organising an information session for career practitioners to come out and see a working farm in action, or for students, perhaps they've got a class that they'd like to? Is there a process they need to follow?
Really, it just to contact myself, either email or phone number, and I haven't actually got a slide with those details on, but I'm happy for Jen to send them out to anybody. And then depending on the nature of the environment they'd like to see, whether it be a farm or, like you said, a cheese factory or something, then we'll just contact one of our board members. Actually, he operates Tarago Cheese near us, and he is happy to have people go out there. So we love trying to organise excursions. That's
great. So let's get a list going, guys, because I want to go find out how to be a cheesemaker and actually tour. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. No
Thank you, Sarah.
And just to everyone that's in the room, by the end of the week, you will get a follow-up email, which will have a whole range of links to really interesting little videos, which we unfortunately can't show through WebEx. The platform doesn't seem to host online videos very well, but Sarah's provided us with lots of videos that you can show students, links to those brochures, the PDF of the the training
careers brochure.
Yeah, the careers brochure. Links to Sarah's information to get in touch with her. So rest assured, by the end of the week, you'll have all that information. So if there's something that really piques your interest today, you can follow up and make those plans for perhaps an excursion later next year, or whenever we're allowed to do those things again. So you'll have all that information. So thank you so much, Sarah, for presenting to us this afternoon. Really interesting presentation. Quite a beautiful aesthetic presentation as well. It's so nice to see green grass and the farm. So that's been really lovely. So thanks on behalf of everyone at the CEAV and all the participants in the room today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving Gipps Dairy and the dairy industry the opportunity as well, Jen. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And to everyone that's still in the room, thank you for being here. We've just got another 5 or 10 minutes or so, and then we'll be finishing up. So I just quickly wanted to run you through the accompaniment to the presentation today, and that's the online resources that the CEAV has developed. So some people will have already seen these. If you have not, I'll just give you a brief overview of what they include, and all of these resources are completely free to use, easy to download, they're not hidden away anywhere, they're just right on our website. So if you just go to the CEAV website and click on Industry Immersions, you'll be able to find these resources and use them with your students. So what do they include? They've been designed to provide students with a little bit of insight into the different occupations within different industry areas. So the Food and Fibre resource has some video clips of people working in the dairy industry, but there's also other information on other jobs within food and fibre as well. So they all have interviews with real people who are working in these particular jobs. And a great addition to the resource is that all the videos have questions to provoke the student to think about what they're watching, I suppose, and they can type their responses directly into the PDF document, because it's an editable PDF, and they can save that and download it and send to you or to their class teacher for review. So these resources are accompanied with a teacher resource, which has all the answers to all the questions within the booklet. So you don't actually have to go through them and find out the answers yourself. You can do it the quick way and just check it if they've hit those key points when they've submitted their answers. These resources can also be downloaded and sent to you, but also saved in their e-portfolios. So if your students are using My Career Portfolio or another electronic portfolio, they can save it in there and have that as evidence of what they've been learning and researching as part of their career planning. There's a really great part of the book which encourages students to think more about work experience. So instead of it being a last minute rush where they quickly think, oh gosh, I have to find something, where am I going to do it? This encourages students to do a little bit of thinking, jot down a few names and numbers, get an email address and make contact with those work experience placements that they might like to pursue. And hopefully in 2021, work experience will go ahead with no glitches. There's also the opportunity for students to explore and use Job Outlook. So when I was working in schools with students, Job Outlook was definitely my go-to for allowing students to navigate their way around thinking about different jobs, what's out there and how to learn more about different jobs, the wages, which they all want to know, but also what study opportunities, what's the likelihood of jobs within particular occupations in the future. Within the booklet, there's also a really handy table which has direct links to vet course information. So it's all live links. So for each job that's discussed within the booklet, you can see, you can click on who's offering studies in that particular area. We've also included interviews with students who are studying vet. So as we know, young people love to hear from other young people about their experiences. So these little videos give a bit of insight into vet, so it helps to explain what vet's all about and why students should consider undertaking a vet subject. There's also a really handy little pathways planner, which as a career practitioner or even as a teacher, you might like to reference, and it helps give an overall picture of the many, many options of career planning and how it's never stagnant. You can go up, down, left, right, and you can always reach your career goals. So there are 11 different resources. There is one for food and fibre, which is the green resource we just showed on the screen then, but there's also many other industry areas as well. So there's construction technology, creative industries, defence technologies, digital tech, food and fibre, international education, medical technology and pharmaceuticals, professional services, retail, transport, distribution and logistics, transport technology, and visitor economy. So across the board, all of the resources, they're all about 15 to 20 pages long. So they include so many videos that we hope that you'll be able to use with students, save you having to find those clips, and we're really hoping to take away some of that pressure that as a career practitioner, we can find that we're really time poor because time does get away from us. So hopefully you find things for nearly every single student that you're working with that would suit their interests, where their interests lie. So now I'm going to introduce Steph Doyle, and she's from the Department of Education, and she's going to briefly speak to the participants today about My Career Portfolio. So My Career Portfolio is a e-portfolio system that government schools have access to. And Steph, are you
Can you hear me?
there?
Yep.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. So
No
thanks
worries.
very
Thank you,
much,
Jen.
Steph.
And thank you to yourself and the broader CEAV team again for the opportunity to be here today. So yeah, as Jen mentioned, I'm just going to give a bit of an overview about the My Career Portfolio resource. Before I do that, just a bit of a refresh and background about why we developed it. And some of you might already be aware of it. It's come out of a number of reviews and reports that identified that there are a number of issues with the provision of career education in schools. So the department conducted a review in 2017 into career advice and planning in Victorian government schools. And in the same year, there was a parliamentary inquiry into career advice activities in all Victorian schools. And the findings of the two were quite similar, and some of the concerns and issues they identified were that the provision of career education in schools varied quite widely. It started too late. It was primarily focused on years 10 to 12. It needed to provide students with more meaningful connections to the world of work. And it wasn't always prioritised by all schools. So in response to that, the Victorian government has invested 109 million over 4 years and 26.7 million ongoing in a suite of initiatives to reform career education in Victorian government schools. And we're focusing on 3 key areas as part of that reform package. So firstly, we're focusing on starting earlier. So beginning year 7, working all the way through to year 12. We're focusing on creating those better connections to the world of work and supporting all schools to make career education a priority. So My Career Portfolio is one of the initiatives as part of that reform package. It's available for use by all government school students in years 7 to 12 and was developed primarily to support all students to navigate and track their career journey, to support them to put their career exploration into concrete actions, and to facilitate their conversations with yourselves and other teachers and with their parents as well about their career education journey. So it provides 3 key aspects. The central part of it being an online career action plan, and there's a career action plan template for each year level in the system. It provides them with one central place to store their files and links that they gather as part of their course and career planning. So we encourage students to save things like examples of their schoolwork in there. Students in year 9 who've done the Morrisby obtained their Morrisby report through the My Career Insights initiative. My Career Portfolio is a great place for them to be able to store the report that they get from that process. And we also have pages and locations where they can browse a range of career education resources. So we provide easy links to pages like My Future, the Job Outlook site, TAFE and Uni websites, for example. So one-stop shop where they can gather all that information. And teachers who have access to the system, it means you have access to your students' career action plans and their files all in one central spot as well. So in terms of how it can be, it's a great resource, obviously, that you can incorporate into your classes. classes where you're delivering the industry immersion booklets with your students. It's a great accompanying resource. As Jen said, perfect location for them to be able to save their workbooks and have them as a reference for their future planning. It also, the industry immersion booklets are a great resource to support the career action plan development as well. So there's a number of questions throughout the career action plans which have a focus on reflecting on work-related learning. So really encourage your students to reflect on the work that they've done through these workbooks. You know, if hopefully we get an opportunity in future to return to you know, excursions and all those sorts of things. So all those kind of work-related activities that they are doing to encourage them to come back to their career action plan and reflect on those experiences as they respond to the questions to build their plan. And just wanted to just take an opportunity to also flag, some of you in the room might be familiar with my career portfolio. We are in the process of delivering a number of enhancements to it. We had the first release of those at the end of term 3. And one of the new features there is a new section relating to the world of work. At the moment, it's just the bit of a foundation space that we'll be building on with some more information and resources to support students as they undertake those workplace learning experiences and support their career exploration as well. So please, if you haven't had a chance to look at them, check it out, and definitely keep an eye out and encourage your students to keep an eye out in the future as well for more that will be coming. Thanks, Jen. So just to finish off, I just wanted to just briefly flag in terms of access. Again, for those who aren't familiar with the system and might be considering using it, your students will need an active EduPass account in order to be able to log in. But we have a web page there that's got a whole bunch of resources to support schools to access and get online with the system, including some information about the EduPass process and how to support students with that. So please check out that page. But if you have questions at any time, need any help with any issues at all with the system, please just get in contact with us on that email address there, and we'd be more than happy to help you. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks so much, Steph. My career portfolio is a great little tool for keeping all of those student records and information and activities, career planning activities that they're doing all in the one space. So as Steph said, if you haven't had a chance to access it yet, all the information's there on the screen, and you can contact the Career Education Unit at the department if you need access or you've got any questions. So just to finish off today, not only have we learnt about the dairy industry, but there's still, even though we're in almost November, there's still time for students to learn more about other industry areas. So we're really excited to announce, if you haven't already registered yourself or your students, we've got another couple of 3 more webinars coming up, 2 for careers in the creative industries. So in a couple of weeks, we've got a guest presenter from the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra who will be speaking to students and educators on the Wednesday and the Thursday. The details are there on the screen. So the presenter was a professional, I think it was double bass player, and now she's moved into another aspect of working for the MSO. So we're going to hear a little bit about her story and of the many opportunities for work in the creative industries. And we've got another student event after the really successful event that we ran back in September. Metro Tunnel are going to be presenting again to students on the 26th of November. So you might be thinking, oh, that's quite late. Lots of students will be gone by then. The thought process around the 26th of November is that maybe the 7s and 8s, you might be looking for things for students to do within that time period where the things are slowing down but students are still at school. And of course, you can still send these links to students who may have already finished for the year, or within their even exam periods, if it doesn't clash with an exam, they still might like to log on and listen. So you can easily register for any of these upcoming webinars via our website. I'm sure that Dave and Amelia have already put the link in the chat box, so you can easily do that. And we've also provided a link to a survey. If you could take 35 seconds to complete that before you log off today, that would be much appreciated. And we will use that feedback to further improve these webinars and put together a suite of engaging webinars that really meet the needs of you as a career practitioner and also what your students are wanting to learn about. So thank you to all of our guest presenters today. Thanks to Steph from Department of Education. Thanks to Sarah from Gipps Dairy. Thanks to my team, Dave, Amelia, and to our CEO, Bernadette. And thank you to everybody who's in the room this afternoon. As I said, it's really heartwarming to see so many people here who are giving up their afternoon on a Wednesday to learn more about careers in dairy and food and fibre, so we can share that and impart that information onto our students. So thanks very much, and we hope to see a lot of you or all of you in one of the upcoming webinars. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jen. Bye. Thanks, Sarah. Bye now.